Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me here tonight. This is a perfect night to celebrate 50 years of the Naperville Astronomical Association. You look around and you realize some of the hot nights we've had and some of the rainy nights we've had, some of the smoky nights. And as I come down to this facility, which I think is one of Naperville's jewels, yes, I just called our water treatment plant a jewel. I love coming here because this is a place full of science. And we have some of our smartest city employees that work here. We have some of our smartest technology here. And we have the home of the Naperville Astronomical Association here. We are delighted on behalf of the City Council to have you here in celebrating 50 years of success in science and teaching and relationships that you've built over those years. So important. And what I found tonight, and just walking around the audience and meeting so many people that have come back for this particular celebration, that this isn't just a club about studying our skies. It's also a club about building great relationships with people who care about each other and appreciate something in common. So science, as we all know, is something that we're trying to get our young people involved in and educated in. And I think when you look at what you've accomplished here over all these years, developing these great relationships and how you've taught science to kids who might not otherwise be interested, and you've taught each other things over those years, it's really a testament to what this organization is all about. And we are delighted to celebrate 50 years and look forward to 50 more. So thank you for being here tonight and celebrating with the club.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for welcoming me this evening. I am really pleased to be here on behalf of Congressman Bill Foster. He has been representing Naperville for about 12 years now, and I know he's been to this location and is very aware of this organization. As a physicist, of course, he's really proud of the fact that a physics teacher is who is honored by the name of your observatory, and the thing that I wanted to share too coming here, I was thinking about one of my science projects. My 7th grade science project was about observing the skies. So my father made me my plexiglass star charter, and I charted the stars for about a month in the cold and in my backyard. And it was really an amazing experience learning about how the stars change from day to day. And even in those, I live in Downers Grove, it was kind of hard to see a lot, but it was really an amazing experience. And I think about what children really need today is that quiet and that time outside, observing the stars, taking deep breaths, connecting with each other and connecting with nature, and connecting with the miracle of our universe. So I really appreciate the hard work you guys do. I know you're connecting in the community all the time. You're teaching, you're observing, and your perseverance of 50 years. Organizations to come and go. So to be here for 50 years is really an incredible accomplishment. So congratulations, and thank you for welcoming me this evening to be a part of this celebration. Thank you.
I just really want to thank you guys, all of you who were involved with setting up this club 50 years ago. Actually, it might have even started a little earlier than that, because as I understand it, you were high school students.
Well, we were high school students when we founded it.
When you founded it, and then you joined the Astronomical League 1 year later after founding it. So do we have to have another celebration next year? I guess that's a question.
Why not?
But anyway, I would really like to give a hand to Larry and Drew and everybody else from the club who's here. One of the statements that I found on your website is the Naperville Astronomical Association, and in quotation marks, organized amateur astronomy. Well, we see that. We see the organization. We have observatories here, and you've grown. You for 50 years. That shows amazing leadership and structure and organization. I'm here really as a representative of the North Central region of the Astronomical League, and that's actually a nationwide group. Actually, it's beyond the U.S. now. There's some members outside of the U.S., so it's international. And Mr. Carol George was going to attend here, but he couldn't do it. So I'm standing in his place, and what I would like to do is give you folks a plaque to commemorate your 50th anniversary here. So whoever would like to, it says, the Astronomical League congratulates the Naperville Astronomical Association on its 50th anniversary on this date, 2023, and it's got Carol George's signature on it. Beautiful. And so I would like to congratulate you and thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here and among a great group of folks, because we are all an astronomy family. We really are. This is a science that welcomes people. The mission of the Adler Planetarium is to connect people to the universe and each other under the sky we all share. I was hearing the same words from our two speakers prior, and it's something that we really take to heart. Something that you do every single time you're out here or out on the Riverwalk with your telescopes, or every time you're at a school doing a program for kids. We want to encourage folks to really see the sky as something that belongs to them, and they want to understand more about it, and that's why we do what we do. Congratulations on 50 years, but I also have a challenge. Please look ahead to the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Who are the people you are going to welcome into the club? Who are the people you're going to say, you have a home here, you have a place here, you can come here and be involved, and we want you to. We want you to do that. So that's your challenge. Look ahead also. And congratulations, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, my name is Stephanie Ridcott. Not only do I run the planetarium for Waubonsee Valley High School in District 204, I'm also a science teacher at Waubonsee Valley. So I am just like many of you. I go out into the community in my classroom, and I share my passion for astronomy. Over the years, we've had this stellar relationship between NAA and ourselves, as Larry was explaining. And I think that complicates things just a little bit for me, because first-time visitors will come to the planetarium and they'll look at my star projector and go, that's kind of funny looking. Where's your telescope? Or, hey, why doesn't your dome open up? My personal favorite is, should we cancel? The weather is just not going to cooperate. I'm sure you all have similar issues, but no, our dome doesn't open. We have a star projector. And it's very rare for a community to have both an observatory and the planetarium. So while that makes my job a little bit more complicated, I truly do love what I do. Many of us can probably fondly remember the first time we looked through a telescope. For me, it wasn't until I was much older. In fact, my parents bought me my first telescope as a graduation present from college. I didn't grow up around here. In the communities that I grew up in, there was no local amateur astronomy club association. I didn't look through a telescope until I was in college, and there was no planetarium for me to really spark my imagination and inspire me to go this route. The stars aligned for me in a different way. Sorry, puns. I took an astronomy course in college that happened to be taught in a planetarium dome. And that teacher exuded enthusiasm, invited me to the local astronomy club. I looked through a telescope and I was hooked. I know many of you NAA members out there are just as, if not more, passionate about astronomy than I am. In fact, I bet if I were to ask, like, you're all members or you've all been here before, this is such a great facility. However, I want to take a moment and just say thank you to the members. You make NAA so special. You are my friends, you are my colleagues, you are the people I call when I don't have the answer. Or someone needs help with a telescope. you're the people I turn them to, because I know that you, my friends, would love to do exactly that. So thank you. Thank you for volunteering your time, your personal telescopes, for allowing that first-time viewer to look through a scope and maybe get hooked like I was and go into STEM. That's the dream, right? Thank you for inspiring us all to look up. You never know who will come up to your telescope and get hooked into a future into STEM. Thank you for all of your outreach and truly making astronomy accessible to all for free. That's amazing. And finally, thank you for being such a wonderful resource in our community for 50 years. I am truly honored to stand up here tonight. Thank you for asking me. I truly consider you my friends, and I hope to continue right alongside you and keep NAA going strong for the next, 50 years. I don't know if I'll be here in 50 years. But anyway, thank you so much. Keep looking up.
So we had a couple of different sponsors, almost like co-sponsors when we began the club. Glenn Riley, as you will learn a little bit more about in that observatory in the exhibit room, was instrumental in our being founded. Sponsored the Naperville Central High School Astronomy Club when we were NCHS Astronomy Club, and then sponsored the NAA. And around the same time, we developed sort of co-sponsors, or he's delegated sometimes as his assistants, people like chemistry teacher Bill West, and then also our next speaker, who, when sadly Mr. Riley, as it mentions on the plaque in there, passed away in the middle of the school day as my physics teacher. He took over Mr. Riley's classes. And Steve Heil was, I think, a terrific teacher too, as was Mr. Riley, and it's been a pleasure knowing him and enjoying his membership in the club for a number of years. And so would you please welcome former NAA sponsor Steve Heil.
Thank you, Larry. Wow. When Larry called me, I thought maybe he wanted somebody who had been present at the birth of NAA. And I feel standing here like I was maybe the assistant midwife to that birth. But that's, I was a newly minted high school teacher in 1973 when this club came to be. And Glenn Riley was a wonderful mentor and partner to me as I began my career in teaching. So I'm honored to be here tonight to share with you just a minute about the things that have gone on. I mean, I went on to other things. I taught for 6 years and then I went into industry. But in astronomy, you think about the Big Bang Theory and how it starts small and things just expand and grow. And the same thing, I think, is true if you drop a pebble in a small stream. The waves spread out. And in my case, the waves spread out. I mean, I was, like you say, Laurie, I was sort of drafted into this whole thing, and it became very cool to me very quickly. And so we decided the boys built their first observatory. The dome is still here. And it so impressed the man in Plainfield who made astronomy domes, still makes astronomy domes, that he donated a dome to Naperville High School. And so we had to put something up to make it a dome possible. So we built essentially what looked like a silo there in outside of Naperville Central to get up above the school a little bit. And then put that dome in, we had to mount a telescope. We bought a telescope. And then, as everybody knows here, you have to have a real solid mount for your telescope. So they dug a hole, they put a big concrete block down in the hole, and then on top of that we put a pillar made out of a steel tube filled with concrete. And it went up there to that second level where the thing was. And the telescope was mounted on that, and the floor was not connected any way to that telescope. And we had a great the next 5 years while I was there, and for years longer after that. It's been gone now because of the expansion of the school. But we had an observatory that we could use for the kids. We had to have an astronomy class, and so I went and spent 2 2 years or so going night school at the Adler Planetarium. We had DePaul and took classes back there. This was all in the 70s, Michelle. And, did that, and then we formed like I said, we had a club at the school. We had an astronomy program. I found an article in the Physics Teacher magazine on how to make a planetarium projector, Stephanie. And so we actually made a planetarium projector with a plastic globe, and I drilled a jillion little holes in, but you have to do it backwards because you're doing it from the outside rather than the inside. So, but that was there. And then one of my colleagues that was a math teacher and I built a geodesic dome that fit inside our classroom. And we put that, and the kids and I sat on the, like I sat on the floor anymore, but we sat on the floor and we learned the constellations and stuff like that. Naperville Central, as best I can tell, still has an astronomy program, a one-semester elective course, and we think that's great. So I'm saying, and that ripple continued to spread. When I got married, we had 2 girls in our family. When we would see something that it was dark, I remember pulling off the road in New Mexico and looking up at the stars, and it was so dark and so bright at the same time. And there, so I'm pointing out all of the constellations and back to my girls. And thankfully, my daughter Stephanie has carried on with that. She owns a telescope. She's my grandson's here with me tonight, and they look out in there with their telescope. So you never quite know what it is you're going to do when you start something. But again, as other people said, you want to keep on keeping on. So again, congratulations to you guys. You've changed a lot. I haven't changed, I don't know, very much in the last 50 years. But anyway, thank you so much for letting me share with you tonight.
Halley's Comet, when that was coming, NAA did a program at Blackwell Forest Preserve. So many people showed up that night, the police had to turn people away on the highway. And my son was 7 years old, and there was a picture of him and his dad viewing through our telescope, and it went on into the front page of a newspaper, and he was really thrilled. So the other thing we did with Halley's is we went to Adler, and they had a night, for Halley's, and our kids were able to put things that they made into a time capsule. It was in the cafeteria part, and it was in the wall. And now I don't. Yeah. Still there. Well, they met a lady who in 1910 was like 10 years old, and she was there to celebrate. And I told my son and my daughter, if you're alive and you're old enough, or old enough, yeah, if you can, get somebody to bring you here when they open it up, because it would really be neat. So the other time that was really pretty special, we used to go to Apple River Canyon to do camping trips. And one night we were there, and everybody got to see a boloid come through the camp, the area, and it just lit up our campground. I was in our camper, and I was, I think, the only one that didn't see it, and everybody was talking about it like, what? So it's just been a really wonderful thing, to the memories the nice people we've met, and the memories we have, and we've met people that have been lifelong friends, and it's really special.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Our next speaker and former president has been an acquaintance, a good friend, and a competitor in intramural volleyball from before the club was founded. And she was a terrific president, and threw a mean party too. And we had great times over the years, and it was a very great privilege serving under her as one of the steering committee when she chaired the 1985 NCREL convention here at Fermilab. So please welcome Dina Joslin.
Thank you, Larry. I had taken astronomy courses in college, and at the time, my parents had a neighbor that lived across the street that was a little unusual. She was an older lady, very new agey, who had joined the NAA thinking it was an astrology club. So she said to my mom once, you know, I ought to take your daughter with me because she's into astronauts and all that kind of stuff. She might appreciate what they do. It's not really my cup of tea. So I went to my first club meeting in 1979, just shortly after they got back from that eclipse trip in Canada. And I was hooked right away. I had known about the club, but I hadn't gotten around to joining it. So it was a lot of fun, and they did things like field trips. I remember shortly after I joined, we took a field trip down to Danville, Illinois, where we saw that big radio telescope that was built into the ground. And I thought that was pretty neat. And shortly after that, I started getting involved in volunteering for different events and offices, and I really enjoyed the variety of activities, the public observing, the speakers, the camping trips, and we just had a lot of fun outside of astronomy. We went fossil hunting together, we went to museums together, and it was just a neat community of people. And at the time, many of us were all around the same age, late teens, early 20s. But Dorothy talks about going out to Apple River Canyon, and to illustrate the point that astronomy is loved by everybody, or fascinating to everybody, we were camping there one night, and a biker gang pulled in, built a huge bonfire, and one of our friends from the CAS, the Chicago Astronomical Society, went over and said, put that fire out. And we're like, oh my God, they're going to kill him. But he started explaining what we were doing with all the telescopes, and they thought that was really cool. So they put their fire out, and they spent the rest of the night observing with us through all the telescopes on the different campsites. And eventually they just got on their motorcycles again and drove off before the sun came up. But it kind of illustrates the fact that it's fascinating to everybody, and everybody has a good time doing it, and it's a very personal thing. Everybody likes a different aspect of it. I always enjoyed looking through my binoculars. I enjoyed sitting in a lawn chair, just looking up, looking for satellites and meteors. And I like the telescopes too, but everybody has a different aspect of astronomy that they enjoy, and that's one of the things that's so appealing to it, because you can just like watching programs about it. You can enjoy listening to speakers about it. You can enjoy going places like the other planetarium and learning more about it. And it's just a great way to meet friends. I have lifelong friends now that I've known for decades and decades, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. And I live out in Colorado now, where we have nice dark skies, but I still will never forget the people and events that I partook in when I was in the NAA, and I'm just really proud to be a part of this organization. So, thanks.
We have had 3 dedication ceremonies before this overall appreciation and celebration ceremony. One in 2007, when this complex was just finished recently, and then one back further in 1991 when we increased our Riley Observatory, that's the one over there, from just sort of like a squat, short silo into a larger building. Oops. And the very first dedication ceremony was in 1976, when we had first completed that very small 10-foot diameter building. At that first dedication, I was the final speaker, And indeed, no one asked me to stretch. And I mean, I spoke for, I think, somewhere between 10 or 15 minutes. So, but after I was finished, I sat down next to Jeff Hockey. He is not here tonight, but he is one of our founding members. And Jeff leaned over to me and whispered, "That was too long, Larry." Well, this will be shorter, I can assure you, even with trying to stretch it out a little bit so that our legislators can arrive. And most of what I spoke about that night, because it was a dedication of Riley Observatory, was our teacher, our deceased teacher, Mr. Riley. But I'm only going to talk about him for about a minute tonight. I did have a great experience of him being a teacher, and like a couple of things that I mentioned that I thought were, that I remember that I thought were a little bit different and quite memorable. Through him, I had my first experiencing a virtual image. It was a little concave mirror with a ball swinging in front of it. So, seeing a real image. Every image you see in a mirror is a shaving mirror, a mirror in the bathroom is a virtual image. This concave mirror gave a real image of that little ball swinging. So that was pretty cool. Oh, what's a real image? And then speaking of imaging and optics, we went out one time, did some terrestrial observing with a telescope whose purpose was, through geometry, to determine what the height of St. Peter and Paul Church steeple down near downtown Naperville and North Central College. You can see it from miles and miles around. What was the height of that? So I enjoyed him as a teacher, and I also thought of him as a humanitarian, because when his late wife, and I feel bad that none of his family can be here. I was trying to reach some of the sons, and we even know their names, but Charles Riley, when I looked up what the names of the family, and some of them attended these previous ceremonies, and the late Mrs. Riley, she's gone now, but there are 200 or 300 in Illinois alone with just that exact same name. So none of the family is here tonight. But I was very touched that when his late wife, Ruth, donated what would become the core of our Astronomy Club's library, that it had some personal things he put in there, including goals in life, buried amongst the volumes and handwritten, and such as, I want to help people, I want to make a difference in the world. So we have to thank you to Glenn Riley. So again, shortly after he passed, and we had been founded for only a couple of years, we broke off from the high school, from the district, and began to try to build in the community. And the thing that I love, one of the things that I love about astronomy is, as some of our speakers have alluded to, many disciplines come together, many different reasons why people get interested in or have fun doing what they do in the astronomy. There's just the pure science people who are interested in things like, what's the age of the universe, and what's its structure, and how do supernovas occur, and that sort of thing. But there are craftsmen of various sorts that build telescopes. We've had a number of telescope makers, including this whole telescope in Riley Observatory was entirely homemade, and we have to partly thank John Abrahamian, and also greatly thank Drew Carhart, because they respectively, built ground the mirror and polished it and built the rest of the telescope. And there's people that get into the technicalities of astrophotography and whatnot. And just for the fun of it, for getting to know people, for enjoying company of fellow astronomers. Astronomy is unique that it's sort of a solitary and a social interest or hobby at the same time, and about half of amateur astronomers in the country and worldwide join astronomy clubs at one point or another. So still in the somewhere in the 50 to 100,000 range. So getting along and getting together and sharing ideas and having goal sessions and everything is great. And just it's fun to go out and see things like eclipses and to teach in the schools and everything. We grew over the years. We felt that we would be well instituted in the community, as one of our mentors in another astronomy club put it, that you won't die out. You'll be around a long time because you have a permanent structure of brick and mortar. we thought we would be successful, and that something would endure, but we really didn't imagine all of this. That something so elaborate and that growth so big that we become the largest astronomy club in Illinois and so on. We would look at things like, I would look at the year 2000. My mother would say, "Oh, the millennium is coming." That's as far ahead as I would look back then. And as a teenager, I would never imagine, never even think about something 50 years in the future. So it's pretty amazing. We're proud, but we're pretty amazed. And two, I certainly played some major part and contribution to the success of the club, especially in its early years. Not so much in the last 10 to 20 years, partly because of my work taking me out of the state, out of the area. But I certainly was a major contributor. However, there were a number of members who contributed really considerably more, and one person in particular that is about to speak next, that far, far above all of the rest of us, succeeded in enduring and intense involvement in the club and making it happen and making it be a success. And he's been my friend for a number of years. But I would like everybody to give, and especially an extraordinarily enthusiastic appreciation for our next speaker, who is trying to hide in these observatory now, Drew Carhart, former president.
I said I wouldn't speak until it got dark and you didn't have to look at me. So, thank you, Larry. I've been happy to hear a lot of people talking about the overall look at what our organization has done all these years. Besides stargazing, we have so many indoor programs, so many presentations for basic level and advanced level, and I think Stephanie mentioned the word free. This club has been doing free presentation of astronomy for 50 years to people and sharing. I was asked to focus a little bit on part of our history of this place we're at, our observatories. So I'm just going to ramble a little bit and feel Larry's mentioned some things already. But so we started out, as you all know, as a high school group. There really weren't very many of us. There were 6 or 8 of us who showed up for most things, and that many or less who were really gung-ho about doing stuff and got us in trouble with the high school for wanting to do too much, and that's why we had to form a public club. Our history back then really was very unique. As young people, I can't recount the number of times we were told that we were nuts for trying to start a club and build an observatory, because as far as I know, there wasn't another amateur club in Illinois that had their own independent observatory, not related to, a park district or some other institution or something. So just doing it for anybody was a formidable thing. But we were young and stupid, and so we went ahead and did it anyway. And I don't think, as Larry noted, I don't think that in 1973 any of us were thinking about, 50 years down the road, I'll be standing out in front of this thing that we built, and it'll still be there. The impetus, I think, and this is just my recollection of me from many, many years ago, I think we had what you kind of expect the impetus would be for a group of people, young or older or whatever, to say, let's get together and do something that none of us can do as individuals. If we pool our resources and our skills, we can do this build an observatory thing, which none of us are going to be able to do in our own backyard or something or other. And I think our goal, when we did that initial undertaking, was then we'll have this that we can use and we can share. And again, wow, cool, have an observatory, telescope. I think it was a remarkably short time after we accomplished that that our outlook shifted quite a bit. We realized as a club how exciting, how rewarding, and actually maybe how important it was for us to be sharing this with our neighbors, with the community. And so our outlook really shifted from having a private little thing that, 6 or a half a dozen or a dozen people built and that they would go out and use, to something that, wow, we can invite people here and show them this thing that we like. We can share them the heavens with them. So it was really early on that for our organization, the focus shifted from being hobbyists that are just doing a thing off by themselves to doing this public involvement. And so this became a huge percentage of our outlook for our club. And like our indoor programs, we're like, well, as long as we're getting together, why don't we invite the public to this? So everything we've done has been outreach oriented. And I have personally found over all these decades that it to be very rewarding, and it still is. When you show someone their first view through a telescope and they see the craters, that there's craters on the moon, or they see the rings around Saturn and they say, oh my God. It's like, yeah, I always wait for the oh my God, And as people have, whether it's a 7-year-old who's getting their first look through a telescope or a 70-year-old who's getting their first look through a telescope, it's very rewarding, and it certainly is. It's vindication for your saying, I'm going to go out and show people things through a telescope. You say, yeah, I did the right thing there. So this has been, in all its iterations, and its 3 major iterations of our having observatories, this has always been a focus for us. We're around in parks. We're in the Naperville City Park and along the Riverwalk regularly. We go all over the place when we're asked to all around Chicagoland, really, and share our views. But the observatory has always been a focus for us. As Larry noted, one of the things we were told early on by some people who had some real wisdom and experience in it, yeah, if you have a facility like this, you're going to have a foundation for your organization. I think that's been true, that this is presence with the ups and downs and ins and outs of people coming and going. It's a hobby group, so people don't move here to be part of the astronomy club. It's not like an employment. So they end up moving away or whatever, or interests change, or families grow up or whatever, and so you have a flux of different people through. But we do have this as a foundation point for us. There's a plaque in that building that dates back to its dedication in 1990, I think it was, when we finished that building in its other location, that refers to, I think that's the plaque, it refers to this being a spot where something roughly, it says, where the heavens touch the earth, and there's this interaction for us here. And so I'm happy to say that we got this, and this is successful. And the reason we have this is because of the involvement of members. People are amazed when they come here and they say, yeah, we built all this, and it's owned by our club. We're extremely grateful to the relationship we had with the city of Naperville when we were high school kids and looking for a place to build an observatory of our own. We knocked on a lot of doors, and we were finally told, you should go talk to the utility department. And the water treatment plant here was only in the planning stage, but the architect had drawn this whole big border area of property around the water treatment plant. It was supposed to be buffer zone between the treatment plant and any development that would go on. And the architect had labeled that all as community use. So he had drawn in ball fields and garden plots and a canoe landing down here and things like that. Well, we're the only thing that's community use here. There have been other things out here. There were garden plots for a while and some other things, but the NAA has been here for 50 years and doing that community use thing. So it wouldn't have happened without that relationship with the city, which we're, again, extremely grateful for. We never would have raised the money to buy a parcel of land like this and to protect it like this is. It's amazing that we have this unlit valley here of the floodplain of the river, and then the river right over here with no lights in it. The tower lights aren't so bad. They'll turn them off for us if we need to, but we really don't need too much because they're focused downward so much. So, yeah, the city has made it quite possible. The hard work of our members, both in building and maintaining things, but also in raising the money to do this sort of thing, has been critical also. and our weird way of doing things. I hope you've all, if you haven't been here before, had a chance to tour in the buildings. You're going to see a lot of things in these observatories that you don't see elsewhere, and a lot of those things over the years have also earned us being told that will never work. I wish I had a logbook all the times we were told that will never work when somebody heard about our plans for a pier that goes up and down, or imaging like this before it was being commonly done, which it is now by more people. We heard a lot of that will never works, but we've managed to make it work. And I've been happy to be a part of that. It looks like our other speakers are coming, so thank you very much. I'm delighted to see so many faces out here, and the appreciation. And it's a reassurance to me that the club is going to be here for a while longer, because there's people out there who think it's cool. So thanks very much, everybody.
Good evening, everybody, and what a beautiful evening it is. I'm thrilled to be here on the 50th anniversary. Congratulations. 50 years, as everybody knows, is kind of small in astronomical terms, but hey, here on Earth, this is a nice piece of time. I have to admit, I've never been out here before, and I am really, it seems a little bit magical. One thing that I wanted to mention is that I think we as a country are learning to appreciate the dark sky so that we can observe the planets, the stars, and the heavenly bodies. And I actually had a resolution passed this past session to encourage cities, municipalities, and local governments to use dark sky lighting in their public work. So instead of a stadium, lighting up the entire sky, to start taking notice of what's above.
Hi everyone, I do not want to keep you be between you and the moon, so I'm Janet Yang-Rohr, I represent the Naperville area, and I just want to offer my deepest congratulations on your 50-year anniversary. It is just such an incredible milestone to reach. I know you've gone through so many changes and you've grown so much since 1973. And I know the study of astronomy has grown so much and has expanded so much. I think that back then, Pluto, right? Pluto was a planet, one of the 9 planets, and unfortunately it got downgraded a little. Now it's a dwarf planet. I am so looking forward to hopefully seeing some of your equipment here. It looked really, really amazing. Even the equipment that we use and what we can see now has probably just expanded beyond anyone's wildest imagination, to the point where, in my Twitter feeds and my Facebook feeds, I'm getting pictures of Earendel from the James Webb telescope, and that's just so amazing. I wish you all so much joy and happiness and success in your next 50 years. And I am just so thrilled to be able to present on behalf of my colleagues and I and my office, on behalf of the Speaker of the Illinois House, a certificate just with our deepest regard for the Naperville Astronomical Association, and to another amazing 50 years for you all.
Thank you.